All right, so I've got a thought again based off of the Book of Mormon today. And that thought is, first off, we're kind of looking at this transitional point from Nephi's dream into his interaction with his family again, while they're still over in the old world, the Eastern Hemisphere, I guess, right? So he visits with his brothers, and his brothers are like, what's this dream mean that Dad told us? And he's like, well, haven't you inquired of the Lord? No, the Lord teaches no such thing to us. Okay, so Nephi kind of chews them out. But I think this is kind of an all men are created equal type of moment right there. I think that this is the problem with the Council of Nicaea, is the Council of Nicaea, it wasn't a turning to the Lord and a turning to the prophets. It was a turning to their own kind of arguing it out back and forth and making it a government policy. Versus Nephi, what he's expressing to his brother in there is, all men are created equal. You're a son of God too, just, a child of God, I guess we could say better, right? Go and pray. Go and pray. Ask him for guidance. Study it out. Think about it, right? So there's that. Then they're hunting, and his bow breaks. Now, this is where, the government policies come in and take care of Lehi's family, because they're so downtrodden that there's just nothing they can do for themselves. I'm kidding. No. Men are agents unto themselves. Nephi's an agent unto himself, and he can do many good things of his own free will and choice, right? And so he does. He goes and he figures it out. He makes a bow out of wood. Now, his whole family is being affected by this situation, which makes it then therefore a family sort of matter, a family sort of preside, provide, protect type of matter, which really falls in his father's court. And specifically the Liahona gives directions. That's one of the main things it gives us. It tells him where to go. And Nephi's like, okay, let's just cut to the chase and get this thing right. We've already tried that whole, let me be guided by the Spirit right off the bat. So he goes, and he doesn't ask to borrow the Liahona, rather he asks his father. And I think the term that comes to me in my mind is spiritual usurpation. Had Nephi presumed unto himself where to go to provide for his entire family, he would have been claiming unto himself power that wasn't his. It was rightfully his father's. He could have done that, I guess, for his own wife. I think this is right around the time he also gets married to one of the daughters of Ishmael. But he's trying to help his whole family. So he goes to the family patriarch, plus the one who specifically seems to have had the Liahona placed outside of his tent. So this reminds me of Saul telling, the prophet Samuel telling Saul to wait before offering the sacrifice, that it needed to be done through the proper procedures and positions of power. And Saul says, yeah, we're going to go ahead and offer the sacrifice ourselves. We're getting impatient. That's usurpation. It's spiritual usurpation. Even if it seems like it's a good thing, you need to go through the proper channels. So some people call it an act of respect on Nephi's part. It might just be that. But I partway suspect he was trying to avoid being a usurper. In other words, the counselor to the presiding officer never presumes unto himself the power of presiding without double checking with the presiding officer, right? That's kind of my thoughts there. And so I think that's what was going on with Nephi, right? He wasn't claiming unto himself a power that wasn't his. Then we get to, so this is interesting because Nephi's already been receiving revelation on his own, but he keeps to its proper channels and encourages his brothers to receive the revelation for themselves. But when it comes to something for the entire family, he goes to his father, not being a usurper. Now it comes time they get to the coast, and as best as I can tell, the revelation to build the ship was directly to Nephi. However, they used the Liahona to guide themselves once they were on the ocean. And it seems like that was mostly probably Lehi's job, except for at a point where Laman and Lemuel became like the captors, right? It seems like potentially there. So, but Nephi receives this revelation to build this ship on his own, as best as I can tell. Is this a transition of the power and authority going over to Nephi? I don't know. I think he's just doing what the Lord's telling him to do. His brothers are the ones that are obsessed over who's in charge. I think that obsession over who's in charge shows a tendency to want to be in charge, right? So they keep saying it belongs to us to rule, as if it belongs to us to rule everybody else around us. That's kind of a scary kind of attitude, if you ask me. But that seems to be the Laman and Lemuel attitude. Is they're not just concerned with whether or not somebody's ruling over them, but they're concerned about, hey, we're supposed to be the ones ruling everybody. We're the oldest, right? So this is a character flaw, a massive character flaw. We'll see it later in the Book of Mormon. I'll go ahead and bring it up right now. There's one group who tries to secede from the entire group. That's the Nephites. And there's one group who doesn't want to let them secede. Okay? And I'm using that term on purpose, specifically that term. Okay? So food for thought there. I'm not sure it's a perfect application. As a matter of fact, I'm positive it isn't. This is part of my complaint about using court precedent to set the permanent meaning of the Constitution and using that as a blanket decision for all cases in the future. That idea assumes that all stories that on the face of them sound similar must have all the exact same details. I disagree completely. I think that this recent 14th Amendment decision, for example, this blanket decision covering everything, terrible idea. No, that's laziness. They don't want to deal with cases. They want the Judges Act, which the Judges Act allows them to constantly spend their time defining the Constitution as opposed to dealing with cases. Terrible idea. Terrible idea. So, anyhow, yeah, I think that's what I've got. I'll stop at that. I think the one that really stood out to me again is Nephi avoiding being a spiritual usurper, but also being an agent unto himself and encouraging his brothers to be agents unto themselves, versus their obsession was, let us be agents unto everybody else around us. So they're just kind of different calibers of attitudes right there. So anyhow, thanks for listening, guys. See ya.